Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lew Weiss from Manufacturing Talk Radio. I'm here today with Ara Surenian, who is with Plex, P-L-E-X, who is part of a company that you all know about. So, Ara, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you're part of, what you're doing, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good, Lou. Thanks for having me join you today. So my name is Ara Surenian. I am the VP of Product for Plex's Supply Chain Planning and Scheduling Solutions. Specifically, Plex is part of Rockwell Automation, where we specifically provide cloud-based ERP, MES, QMS, APO, supply chain planning and scheduling, quality solutions to manufacturers, both small to huge enterprise manufacturers with global footprints.
It's a rather broad-based concept. So let me ask you, I'm sure you're national, you're international. I'd like to ask, when you're out there reaching for clients, manufacturing clients who have inventory, like what's behind you there,
Right.
they, when you're talking with a potential client and you're trying to get the point across about planning and so on, so they don't have to use Excel,
Right.
excuse me. What is it that how do you present this to a client
Right.
who's been using either Excel spreadsheets or yellow pieces of paper and so on? What is it that you do to make their lives better, more efficient, and so on?
Yeah, so it's actually a really simple way of stating it. One of the biggest problems with Excel is that it is very manual in that data has to be pulled in from somewhere, and then folks do some work with it and then often hand it off or share that file with others. And if you don't really control who has access to what and the formulas and so on, things break. And we see that all the time, where their Bible, so to speak, of their inventory planning and scheduling breaks because of mistakes folks make. And as the dynamics of supply and demand are constantly changing and evolving, particularly over the last 2+ years with COVID and all the disruptions that have happened from that point forward, trying to react to all those changes in an Excel manually initiated process is really hard. Particularly the broader your portfolio, the more locations you have to manage, and in manufacturing as you have deeper, more complicated BOMs. So if you've got a couple of hundred finished goods that you're purchasing, you may be able to pull it off in a spreadsheet. The broader your portfolio becomes, it gets very challenging to manage, particularly as change is constant. So what's a solution like Demandcaster provides, which is the product that I lead, is the ability to directly integrate with the ERP master data, pull that data in, and then generate forecasts and forward-looking plans that automatically get translated into a supply plan, to which then gets exploded through the BOMs, takes into account lead times, and runs an optimized requirements plan while setting inventory levels and so on in a very automated manner. So instead of manually trying to figure it out, it provides oversight in a automated approach, and in turn allows folks to address exceptions and react appropriately to these changes and try to drive more proactive decision making, as opposed to manipulating and playing around with the data all the time. So a really important idea and reality that we try to help folks resolve.
One of the things that myself and my co-host, who's not here today, Tim Grady, is that manufacturers, they know how to make things.
Yeah,
They know how to sell things. They know how to do whatever it is they do. But one of the things that they don't know is how to improve the efficiency of their operation. They don't, there's a lot of things with regards to new technology that they really don't know
yeah,
how to do. So
right.
you have a product, and frankly, there are lots of similar products out there, and they're all slightly different. But are you finding it difficult to sell the concept to a manufacturer, whether it's a small retailer or a small manufacturer or a large manufacturer, as to, I have a product, or not, you have a product. Can you get them to buy in quickly to understand that here's the deal? We can help make your life easier, more
Right.
efficient, more better return on investment, and so on and so forth. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah.
Is it easy?
Yeah. I think the answer is it depends. Look, there's nothing easy in manufacturing. Let's state that as a matter of fact. I mean, my career, I started off as a mechanical engineer and then went into plant management, operations management. So I've sat in the chair where a manufacturing guy is trying to figure out these problems. So there were a few things that I knew when I was both a supervisor and a plant manager. Everything starts with data. The more data you have, the more accurate that data is, the better you can make decisions. You have an understanding of what's going wrong. You can apply classic principles such as the Pareto principle, rank it, go after the biggest problem, and so on. So it starts with data. Now, when I worked in manufacturing, this is going back a while in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, we didn't have all the systems we have today, right? There was no way to easily get data out of a machine and understand the performance of a machine in terms of its efficiency and when it's had problems and it wasn't running to the rates that it's supposed to. We have that now. And being part of Rockwell, we have this unique advantage in that most of the controllers in the world of manufacturing are Allen Bradley, right? So as part of Rockwell, we have the ability to connect and actually pull out that data and use that in all the decision making, right? So if I have a planning and scheduling problem I'm trying to solve, by enriching that data with machine data, we now are able to better predict what's going to happen. We are able to identify issues in performance and come up with solutions to those problems, whether it be a better maintenance program to address machine downtime issues. We can see operator performance and help optimize the schedule around skill sets that may be available. So that's really where we help solve the problems. And the most important question that I often ask any customer we're dealing with is, do you have the time and the resources initially to invest in this? Because if you can't fix your data and you can't solve the core issues, we really can't help. We can show you the problem, but it still requires the human beings to go in and actually fix the problems, if you know what I mean.
To that point, my primary business is not manufacturing talk radio, but it's All Metals and Forge Group.
Right.
It's a steel forging company. In 1994, 28 years ago, and I decided that I wanted to go for ISO 9000.
9,000,
And
yes,
then in 1998, we went for AS 9100,
right, yeah,
the aerospace. My employees at the time, both on the floor and in the offices and admin, their combined methodology was, why do we have to listen to a foreign country, Switzerland?
right,
Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to make these changes? And you know, you can tell the story over and over again about the why.
right,
Why this, why that, why the other thing. It was a hard sell, and I'm sure you have hard sells as well. We wound up receiving our certification of registration in 1994, and it was the first day that we had our certificate in the hand. And one of our salespeople received a phone call from a client in Wisconsin who said, I have a problem. I need to
mhm,
buy a steel forging, but it has to come from a company who is ISO certified.
right,
Are you ISO certified? And we happen to be one of the first metal
mhm,
companies that were certified. And of course, the salesman said yes.
yeah,
I'll never forget it as long as I live. It was a $50,000 order in 1994. And he got the order primarily because we had the ISO. I didn't
right,
have to sell the story anymore.
right,
Got
right,
it.
right, right,
Everybody got it. So it takes that kind of experiment
yeah,
to make it plausible and make it understandable that, okay, I got it.
right.
Are you experiencing that?
Um, to a certain, I'm not sure. Again, it depends on the customer. So I mean, there's some comparable things. So, everybody's worried about security right now,
Of
right? And
course.
we're cloud based. And the one thing that we have that we can show our customers is that we have a 98 scorecard rating out of 100 on security, right? That our competitors don't have. So if you're worried about it, if security is top of mind, we have that. We also have just a whole number of case studies where we can share with our customers a before and after in terms of inventory accuracy, of throughput improvements, OEE, all these things by implementing our application. So it's not a certification per se, but it's testimonials that we can share and show people how our solution helped drive people to that better outcome.
When you say security, are you talking in terms of cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity.
Example, NIST 800-171?
Yeah, so it is. So we're getting certified. We have certifications relative to that. But we also have our own security protocols that we follow relative to speed of patching, vulnerability identification, a whole sorts of things. And we have a third party that constantly is looking at our application through the internet to assess how well we're grading on a whole host of critical criteria, right? That are often the openings and the vulnerabilities that bad actors can follow. So, we believe that as a partner to a manufacturer, because we're cloud-based and we're the ones managing all the things that normally companies have to manage on their own, that we adhere to a very high security requirement that provides our customers comfort that there won't be downtime as a result of some ransomware attack or things like that. Case in point, we had a customer that their entire intranet and all their systems were held by ransomware, and the only thing running was their manufacturing system that was in the cloud, right? So oftentimes for traditional manufacturers, even this idea of moving from I own all my data today to the cloud is sort of a big step for them because manufacturing systems aren't traditionally in the cloud. That's changed significantly, and there's lots of evidence that shows the value. And security is sort of a cornerstone in providing our customers the comfort and the understanding that we take their data seriously, and they're going to have 98, 99.99999 uptime with the solutions we provide. So
before we get too far into the show, why don't you give us again the name of your company, URL, and either an email address if you wish?
yeah, so I won't give an email address because it's all on the website. So for ERP, MES, QMS, APO, those products, you can go to plex.com, as well as supply chain planning is at plex.com. The supply chain planning solution also has a solution called, that's with the URL demandcaster.com. So the word demand and then caster, caster.com is where the supply chain planning and scheduling solution resides. And then from there, there's ways to contact us. So
that's great. That's great. Because certainly one of the things that we'd like to do is to get your information out to the public, because like I said at the beginning, they know how to make things, they know how to do things, but they don't necessarily know how to go forward, how to become more efficient, how to become more secure, and so on. So it's important that your story, as well as others, get out to the manufacturing world.
excellent. Yeah, thank you.
And to that degree, I thank you for your input here.
Absolutely.
So give us one of your more success stories of where somebody, I don't know, maybe you have one that crashed and burned and you brought them back to life.
Crashed and burned and brought him back to life. Oh boy. So I'm trying to think of a couple of good examples I can share very quickly. So we had a really, so they didn't crash and burn while we were there. So they were struggling with inventory. They were struggling with shortages. They were struggling with, carrying too much of what they don't need, too little of what they don't need. They were struggling, creating purchasing requirements against their suppliers and finding that they were constantly expediting. So we got involved in planning and scheduling and implemented a sales and operation planning, business forecasting process all the way through supply execution. And the word that the CEO would use was transformational in that, and it wasn't like any magic, it was simple things like once you start formally planning and scheduling, and one of the neat things about our application, it's very visual and you can follow demand up and down a chain. They started to understand collectively the importance of accurate inventory, accurate order management, making sure the demand planning was being measured for accuracy, that they weren't constantly changing it. So a good system not only makes it easier to plan and schedule, but it should also drive discipline in how people approach their business. And that really is the transformational part. It's that transition. So we were able to help them drive down their inventory significantly, millions and millions of dollars. They were actually able to use this money to acquire a competitor during COVID because they were going to go out of business and suddenly they had a lot of cash on hand. And even during COVID, they saw tremendous growth because they were able to, in essence, steal business from their competitors because they were very targeted in how they
Sure,
were addressing the
sure,
needs of the market.
sure. Just a very quick story of mine.
Yeah,
Uh,
please.
we had several years ago, we at our plant, we had been hit by a hurricane.
Mhm.
And the National Guard came in and they shut down our roads. They shut down our plant because our plant was underwater.
Right,
And which was obviously a terrible situation. We had no plans in place. It was impossible to have plans in place. So we were shut down as a result of the storm. We were shut down for 5 days. And once the 5 days have come and gone, I said to my team that, you know what, we can never have this happen again.
right, right,
So
right.
we created a business continuity plan that if we ever had a situation like that again, that we could flip a switch and the next day we're up and running.
Right.
So that we did that. It took us a year to build this business continuity plan. And this is what companies need to do.
Absolutely.
You have to think about what you don't know is coming.
Right.
So what we did was we built the business continuity plan, and then guess what? COVID came.
Yeah.
And on March 23rd, 2020, the state of New Jersey and our local community said, you're closing down. And the next day, we had everybody working from home. They all had computers, they had printers, they had scanners, they had their cell phones were all connected to our main phone line. And when the next day came, we flipped the switch and we were operational.
Right.
And, you know, it's like I said, it took a year and a lot of money to make this happen, but with the idea that, well, this will never happen. And I got
Right.
a lot of pushback from employees and management and so on. And you know what? They were
Mhm.
thankful that this happened. And we've been working from administrative and sales wise, we've been operating remotely for the last 2.5 years.
Right.
Frankly, it's working better than when prior to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, that was the beauty of our Plex customers, because we're cloud. They could work from anywhere. It didn't matter, right? Obviously, the manufacturing folks had to be on the line, but even engineering and manufacturing engineers could go in and view what was happening on the line directly from the web, because things were connected,
Right, right.
right to the shop floor.
So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of your program. Your software, is this, do companies buy your software or is it a lease
Yeah,
software
it's a subscription,
subscription?
right? It's a
Okay,
subscription. So just like your Netflix is a subscription, you can get enterprise software as a subscription. So it's SaaS, subscription as a service. So they pay a annual fee, and that gives them license to use the software. They can choose different apps. So in our world, we have two primary products. We have something called Advanced Requirements Planning. That is a optimized MRP engine that includes MRP, DRP, purchasing, capacity planning, and so on. And then we have an advanced business planning solution that provides demand planning, supply planning, and support of integrated business planning, sales and operation planning, and so on. But that serves as an input into the day-to-day requirements planning portion of the application. So they choose both. We provide unlimited users. And the key metric is the number of SKUs you're planning, because ultimately we're directly affecting inventory. So the more items you manage, the more locations you manage, the higher the value. So that is basically defines the footprint, the size of the problem we're helping solve. So that's just for supply chain planning, but we have other products that follow a similar type of subscription process.
So in view of my story of the flood of the Passaic River and your planning of possible issues down the road, it's a real good idea for people to buy into this so that they don't run into crises.
Of course.
You know, I have a favorite expression: crisis rules over order unless you do something in advance.
Right.
Correct?
Yes. So in line with that thought, it's basically what you're talking about is scenario planning, right? So you in advance determine a scenario. Not, can you think of every scenario? Could people have predicted the black swan event of COVID? Most people didn't. Maybe they had something in their plan that was a version of that, shorter lived. But, think about the Fukushima nuclear power plant meltdown in Japan and the impact that had on the supply chain, hurricanes, earthquakes. I mean, you name it, and then the frequency of natural disasters have unfortunately increased in frequency, and it have basically affected a broader, it's globally affecting. And then you have wars that break out with Russia and Ukraine. So, can you think of everything? No, but if you think of key things, like anything that disrupts your supply chain in any way, what do you do to overcome that? So like everything else, you start with understanding and ranking where, for example, in your supply base, who are your most critical suppliers? Which of these suppliers supply the goods and that support our revenue, our high runners, things like that. Once you start understanding the potential risk, and you can then make decisions. So a great example is a lot of companies traditionally single source certain critical ingredients or materials. So it could be a steel forger, right? That they have the exact requirements you need. And they may be located somewhere and there's, 60% of your revenue is tied to that. Well, a smart business should be looking at potentially not single sourcing, but dual sourcing that, or even, increasing it to 3 suppliers just in case. And they should be geographically dispersed, because having 2 suppliers in the same region doesn't help you if you have the same natural disaster against it, right?
Correct.
So that's the idea of scenario planning, is understanding the suppliers, the manufacturing locations, all the things that go about helping you meet your revenue objectives and profit objectives of the business, ranking them and coming up with contingencies just in case something goes wrong, right? That's what you did with your contingency planning.
Yes.
So when COVID came out, it wasn't COVID, you weren't planning for COVID, but everything you did for the other thing prepared you.
Well, I was prepared for anything and everything, and it worked out well. It did take us a year because there was no crisis involved.
Exactly.
So we did this slowly, we thought about it methodically and so on. But typically, how long does it take for you to implement a system for a particular client, whether it's a big company or a little company?
It depends on what we're implementing, but I'll speak to supply chain planning specifically because I know that the best. It is as fast as the customer wants it to be. So typically to implement and train it, on average, it would be about 12 weeks, right? You have to get the data right. You have to make sure that people show up and sit in and learn the product. It can be longer if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or in many cases, the implementation process identifies issues with their master data. Their bombs are wrong, their routings are wrong. They may have inventory accuracy issues. They may not be closing orders in a timely manner. We actually have a customer like that that's really struggled in their managing the transactional portion of their work. And our system is highly dependent on accurate data, or else it's going to lead you to do something that you may not want to do. So if your inventory is inaccurate. So typically it's 3 months, 3 to 4 months is the typical time frame. It can be faster if it's relatively simple integration and the data is very clean. And if they come in with some basic knowledge, like if they're APIC certified, and understand material requirements planning and all the things under the APICs, or they changed their name. I forgot their name anyway. I always know them as APICs because I'm an old timer. If you come in with that book of knowledge, you'll learn it faster and you can be up and running quite quickly. If you don't, it may take a little time to learn the ABCs of requirements planning.
I think one of the most important factors in implementing any kind of a program like this is management buy-in.
Yes, yeah, very important.
They have to understand that their business is at risk.
Yes.
And if they don't understand that and buy into that, then they're doomed.
Yeah. Management buy-in is critical regardless of any change. Management requires executive sponsorship, requires management buy-in, or else the people, if they don't see their executives think it's serious, they won't follow through. Why spend the time doing something that no one cares about? And that's particularly important in sales and operation planning, which is a process that our software supports. The whole idea of S&OP is that it is it's cross-functional. It's not just manufacturing or sales making decisions. It is, we're making it collectively. And in the end, executives must ensure that everybody is in alignment, or else if sales say we need X and production says we can do Y, and no one reconciles the two, the plan is going to fail. So regardless, Lew, you're right. It's critically important, regardless of software implementation. Anything that's a change from the status quo requires executive buy-in, executive sponsorship, executive leadership.
I also would assume that as you upgrade your software with new toys, that that's all included in the progression of their program that they're involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, so the beauty of software as a service and our approach is there's a single code base, multi-tenant, in that every customer has their own, in essence, database and instance they're running. It's not being shared across any customer, but that single code base, and that makes it such that when something new is released, oftentimes it's optional. You can either choose to have it enabled in your business node or not, but customers get that automatically. The only exception is if it's something brand new, that is a brand new module that's not included as part of the core solution, then people will have to basically opt in to that functionality. And often there's an increase in subscription fee because those are often tied to value. So we're currently working on a new machine learning engine for forecasting accuracy that will require an upgrade over our current engine because it's a big leap forward in technology that has additional costs associated to it. So those often require a subscription. buy.
How often do you have some major upgrade?
Yeah, so on a typical basis, so we release something nearly every week.
Every
But
week?
every week, it's something small.
Yeah.
It could be an enhancement, it could be an improvement. But we have a very rich customer input in terms of ideas, and we have different levels of development. So at the highest level, we have what's called roadmap. Roadmaps typically are released once a quarter. These are bigger things, a higher cost development, spanning longer periods of time, and require a formal introduction, not only internally of what's new, but also externally to our customer base. And so there's a formality to how we release those things. Then at the next level down, we have what we call customer success. These are smaller items, often ideas submitted by customers that we introduce on a gradual basis, but we effort to have a couple of these come out every month. We announce it in our release notes. We have messaging in the app to let them know it's available. If it's optional, they have the opportunity to ask us to turn it on in their instance, and they can start using it. And then the third level is something we call tech debt and bugs. Every software has bugs, but we have this constant process of identifying and addressing issues that either, in a very rare occasion, a customer brings to our attention, but in most cases, we identify these things during our testing processes, our QA processes, and we'll release those.
So it's a growing process. There's always a good reason why your clients stay with you, because it's a growing process. And as their business grows, which I'm sure it does and will, with regards to your base program, that it's a good thing, and you have longtime clients.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, I've had customers with us from the day I started this business. So this software was actually something I created. And we were acquired by Plex at that time, back in 2016. So I have customers from year one, which was back in 2007, that are still with us.
Good for you.
Yeah, so I always love that. And it's a point of pride. So.
Anand, thank you very much for your time and your effort, your input. I'm sure that our audience can appreciate, and I would like you to give us your URL information again one last time.
Yeah, so plex.com, Plex.com, for the Plex product portfolio, which includes my product as well, Demandcaster. But there's also demandcaster.com, that's specific to supply chain planning and scheduling.
And I would like to thank everyone who has tuned into this show, and hope that you've learned another step going forward in order to help your own businesses to help grow, help the efficiency and so on with your businesses, and perhaps to reach out to Anand for his product that's going to help you continue the growth of your business in a very healthy way. I also would suggest to our audience that Manufacturing Talk Radio is on every Tuesday. We also have WHAM, which is Women and Manufacturing, which is on every Wednesday. We have several other, we have Cliff Notes, we have Manufacturing Matters, we have 4 or 5 other different slices of manufacturing. So you might want to go to Jacket Media Co., which is the jacket, in case you didn't catch the inference, to come and listen to our shows. We have great guests. We have great stories, and come and listen to us, and or listen to us on your favorite platforms, YouTube, and all the other platforms that are out there. Anand, thank you very much for your time. Anything that comes up that's of new and value and explosive, let our team know, and we'll be happy to have you back on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.